The reason that these works continue to resonate today is also connected to the persistence of the idea of the 1960s, which continues to capture imaginations now. The 60s continues to provide a kind of flashpoint for many artists who are thinking through questions of politics, questions of gender, as they began to emerge in this decade. Lee Lozano was an important figure in the New York art scene in the 1960s. She arrived in the city in about 1961, and she exhibited in some of the most important exhibition spaces at that time, such as the Green Gallery and the Bianchini Gallery. She was friends with a number of artists such as Carl Andre, Sol LeWitt, and she really moved in the avant-garde circles at that time of artists that were beginning to produce works that we think of now as minimalist. In the early years of the decade, after coming out of her training at the Art Institute of Chicago, she developed a series of works on paper and paintings that were really quite unlike anything else that was being made and exhibited in New York at that time. Themes that we see later in her work to do with the body, sex, eroticism, humour and absurdity all took hold really in these early years of the decade, and that's what we see in these works in this show here. We see her interest in the bringing together of animate and inanimate objects, bodies and body parts jammed together in quite funny, quite raucous forms, and also we see a kind of visual language that was really all her own that she would return to over again. That includes grinning, gaping mouths with red lips and big gappy teeth that are a kind of anarchic, funny sign that stand for herself as a kind of signature. We see whizzing airplanes flying in and out of people's ears and mouths, and in the background we see crescent shapes that might be moons, but they might also be grinning mouths. Blank portraits that seem to be faces or masks. We can't see who they are, we can't see why they're in the scenario that they're in, but we do understand that she's beginning to depict something like a world at this time. She's developing a language that's all her own, but that seems to be drawn from the world around her, from her loft, from things that she's seeing out of her window. That might be traffic lights, things that are around her, such as plug sockets, but at the same time, these strange whizzing airplanes. And these have been talked about by some people as though they kind of stand for the whizzing around of ideas that she was having at this time. Ideas are the most powerful thing in the world, she said once in her notebooks. And I think that we can understand a lot of these early works on paper and canvas as her working out what those ideas are.